as it marks a new day. A permanent fixture in their neighborhood, a violent drug trafficking organization has been eradicated. This criminal organization has considered areas around North 18th and West Cumberland Streets their turf for many years. The criminal organization has outlasted many businesses in the area that have opened and since closed. The criminal organization has remained like weeds as families and homeowners have moved in and out of residences in the area. Well, today, North Philadelphians, the Lewis Alexander drug trafficking organization, they have a new turf, and it's inside a correctional facility. That's where many of the 17 members of this organization who were arrested in recent days are now residing after arraignments on very serious charges, to include felony, corrupt organizations, drug trafficking, and illegal possession of firearms. The partners you see standing with me today, we formed an alliance, an investigation that we call Operation Cocaine and Coffee. We took a stand against these violent drug traffickers whose daily activities included cooking and packaging drugs, selling drugs, stockpiling firearms, and otherwise serving as a menace to to law-abiding citizens and law enforcement whose neighborhoods were infested by Lewis Alexander and his conspirators. The operation name may have caught your attention, and it has a purpose, and I'll get into that in a minute. I would also like to discuss the members of this criminal organization, their conduct, and how law enforcement built cases against each and every one of them in recent months and years. But before I get there, I would like to introduce the people standing with me today. From the Philadelphia Police Department, we have First Deputy Commissioner John Stanford. From the Pennsylvania State Police, we have Lieutenant Shelley Consavage. We have and she is the Special Services Division Commander. Is that right? Correct, wonderful. And you'll hear from them shortly. Also standing with me today are representatives from our partners at the U.S. Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, the ATF. We have the DEA, the FBI, Homeland Security Investigations, the Philadelphia Sheriff, and members of the Sheriff's Office are here with us today as well. And I want to thank every single one of you for all being here with us. So over the past week, all of these agencies collaborated to formally shut down the Lewis Alexander drug trafficking organization. Last week, this alliance of law enforcement served search warrants at around 30 residences, mostly in North Philadelphia, but also other parts of Philadelphia, Delaware County, and New Jersey. And I want to give special thanks to the Monroe Township Police Department and the Gloucester County Prosecutor's Office, who are of great assistance in our efforts across the river. Officers and agents served search warrants seizing quantities of cocaine, crack cocaine, fentanyl, marijuana, ecstasy, cash proceeds from drug dealing, and 27 firearms. Because, as I said, this is a violent drug trafficking organization, I do not have commentary today on specific incidents of violent crime, but I will let you know that this is an ongoing investigation. While executing those search warrants, we also arrested 16 members of the organization, including 56-year-old Lewis Alexander. A 17th member surrendered on Friday. All of these individuals are charged for their roles in this criminal enterprise. My office will be prosecuting these cases. Of course, all defendants are presumed innocent, and all charges are merely allegations until proven in court. At arraignment, bail amounts varied. Lewis Alexander is incarcerated on $750,000 bail. The defendants on parole and probation will have detainers lodged against them, and they will face additional punishment for violating the law while under supervision. When you get a look at the list of defendants, you may notice that this may not be a youthful organization, as we more commonly see in Philadelphia. Some of the defendants here are in their 50s, 60s, and 70s. Many of these defendants have been at this a very long time. They were menaces to society, to people and families who just want to live free without concern of violence and crime in their everyday life. This criminal organization deprived them of that peace of mind. We collectively, all of us up here, are happy to report that those days are over. Now, how did we get to this point? It's been a long time coming, years. For years, investigators have been working and watching this organization, methodically building cases against many conspirators, as many as we could, so that when the day came to file charges, we would obliterate the organization in its entirety. And that day is today. While I cannot discuss all of the investigative methods, I can tell you that we were watching through surveillance, through undercover work, and other tactics. And we learned a lot. I promised I would talk about the name Operation Cocaine and Coffee. We learned that a storefront, Cumberland Coffee and Snacks, located at the corner of West Cumberland and North Cleveland Streets, was essentially a front utilized by Louis Alexander and his crew. Drugs were sold there, cocaine was cooked and packaged upstairs, and we found evidence of that during searches last week. Drugs were also sold on the streets. We learned that each member had a role. Some were street dealers, others were suppliers, others collected money from the day's work. The drug of choice, if you will, was cocaine and crack cocaine. During searches last week, we found 4 pounds of cocaine. You can see that on the table here today. We also recovered over 130 pounds of marijuana, a product which consistently helped fuel this criminal enterprise over the years, and there were many other drugs as well. And there were guns, a lot of guns. You can see them on the table here. And again, the investigation is ongoing into how these firearms may or may not have been used in the course of the drug dealing. As I close my comments, I want to emphasize the trail of devastation left behind by a large-scale drug trafficking network like this one. There is an absolute human toll attached to this in many, many ways. Countless individuals and families have been harmed by substance abuse and addiction. I cannot overstate the absolute harm, the devastation and destruction caused in all of our communities by addiction and by illegal drugs. I say this all the time during press conferences like this, and the reality is, as a prosecutor, and I'm sure many people up here will agree with me when I tell you this, but one of the absolute most devastating, sad things that I have seen as a prosecutor is when I speak with families who are slowly watching their children sort of ebb away into the world of addiction, and it's out of their control, it's out of their hands, and so many times that ultimately leads to death, which is a pain that no parent should ever have to deal with, especially under these circumstances. This organization, without any doubt, valued their profit over human lives and the destruction of their neighborhood. I want to again recognize the law enforcement officials and agencies that brought this trafficking network to a halt. And I'm going to say this to you, this is really important. There are many of us up here today that are in leadership roles that get to stand here and talk during these press conferences. But the reality is, the people that made this happen and make these cases happen, you don't see them at the press conferences because they are behind the scenes. They are investigators that are putting their life on the lines out on the street to be able to bring these cases to justice. They're administrative employees that help us with all the things that come along with that. They're detectives, they're attorneys, they're analysts that spend countless hours working these cases. This stuff doesn't just happen overnight, and so I'm proud to be able to stand here and talk to you about it, but I'm even more proud to say that I get to work with so many amazing, wonderful, and professional public servants. I mentioned in this case that many charges were filed, and this is a moment of celebration, but this day also didn't come without a cost to those same police officers that are involved with this. These agents and prosecutors made sacrifices to track this organization for years, meticulously building cases. There are many, many long shifts and long days. There are late nights returning home to their families, missing birthdays, missing holidays, and that is not uncommon in this line of work. Sacrifices are made every single day to keep the community safe, and because we all know that if communities aren't safe, literally nothing else matters. I applaud law enforcement not only in this case but across Philadelphia, across Pennsylvania for their commitment to service and to keeping us safe. Every single day when they put on the uniform, they sacrifice. Let us not ever forget that. Now at this point, I would like to turn it over to First Deputy Commissioner Stanford for a few remarks. Let me get this out of your way here.
All right, good morning. Thank you for having me. I'm First Deputy Commissioner John Stanford, Philadelphia Police Department. I oversee field operations, which is the day-to-day operations of the organization. On behalf of Commissioner Bethel and the men and women of the Philadelphia Police Department, I first want to thank Attorney General Dave Sunday for all of his support that you've given us since coming into this position. And I also want to thank all of our law enforcement partners for their continued collaboration and leadership. What you're seeing today is the results of a long-term coordinated investigation into a violent drug trafficking organization in North Philadelphia and beyond. These cases are very complex, they often take time, and they require a lot of focus. I want to take a moment just to acknowledge many times we have information that comes in through community members about narcotics activity and illegal activity, and many times it may feel as though that your complaints aren't being acknowledged immediately because you don't see the uniformed men and women that are out there. But let me reassure you that work is being done. We hear you, and this is an example of how that work is being done by both the men and women of the Philadelphia Police Department as well as our state partners and our federal partners. I want to take a moment to recognize the men and women of the Narcotics Bureau of the Philadelphia Police Department, which is led by Inspector Anthony Washington. He's off to the side, and many times, as the Attorney General alluded to, we are the ones that stand before you presenting many of this information and the strategies, but the real work is being done by the leadership that's running the operations down on the ground each and every day. And so I want to take a moment to acknowledge that because this kind of work doesn't happen overnight. It's built through surveillance, intelligence, and strong coordination with our partners across all levels of law enforcement. This investigation is a clear example of why partnerships matter. This organization didn't just operate within one neighborhood or even within one state. It takes a unified approach to disrupt this type of illegal activity. In Philadelphia, this is part of our broader strategy under the leadership of Mayor Parker, who has been focused on prevention, intervention, and enforcement. And as you know, enforcement is a critical piece of that work, especially when it comes to targeting those who are fueling violence and illegal activity in our communities throughout the city. Beyond the arrests and the seizures, this is about lasting impact. It's about improving quality of life, restoring stability for our neighborhoods, and making sure all of our community members feel the difference that's taking place each and every day. We are grateful for our continued partnership with the Attorney General's office and all of our partners that are involved. This is, as you will often hear Commissioner Bethel reference, it's about the work. And this is a proven demonstration of the work that we are committed to and the work that we are committed to doing together to bring results. And so, again, just want to say thank you for the partnership. And at this moment, I would like to introduce Lieutenant Kunsavage from the Pennsylvania State Police.
Good morning. The Pennsylvania State Police, in partnership with the Office of Attorney General, remains steadfast in its commitment to drug enforcement efforts. We will continue to collaborate with federal, state, and local agencies, working together toward our shared goal of enhancing the quality of life in our communities. Those who engage in drug trafficking will be held accountable for their actions. The successful completion of this complex investigation reflects the unwavering dedication and coordinated use of resources in combating drug trafficking throughout the Commonwealth. Thank you.
Thank you very much. At this point, if anyone has a few questions, we'd be more than happy to take them. If we can answer them, we will. And remember, this is an ongoing investigation, so there's certain things we can't. So go ahead, yeah.
What is the connection, you said, to Delco and then New Jersey? You just mentioned that I didn't know what exactly the connection is.
Right. I mean, very simply, without going into great detail, I can say that the reach of this organization it reached into those places. So there were search warrants that were executed. There was one that was executed in New Jersey, and there was one that was executed in Delco as well.
The homes of the defendants, or
I'm not sure specifically what those specific search warrants were, but they were obviously tied to the investigation. We can provide that information, and you should have the affidavit as well.
Can you talk a little bit more about the connection to the coffee shop, and then also there's some blue dots on the map. Can you talk about what those are, what those represent?
So what I can say with regard to the coffee shop is through the course of the investigation, it was determined that upstairs in that coffee shop was essentially a front for the organization. And it was determined that on the second floor there was cooking of crack cocaine being done up there, and it was part of the entire logistics network for that organization, because these organizations, they obtain a supply somewhere. Oftentimes, they'll take powder cocaine and they'll cook it into crack cocaine, and then they will separate it, and then it will go to the other individuals that will be sold in the street. As I stated during the press conference, there are members of this organization that were part of literally every single part of the logistics chain in this case, all the way to include retrieving money from individuals in the streets. And so that's the nature of the coffee shop.
Are they selling out of the shop? Like, could a customer go into a coffee shop and buy cocaine instead?
My understanding is that was part of this investigation, yes. Yes, sir.
Question, sir. On your little graphic there, you see the little dots there. Does that indicate where people were supposed to be positioned to sell the stuff on the street? Or what specifically is that?
So those represent locations where search warrants were executed as a result of this investigation.
So all those warrants were supposed to be coffee shops?
Some of those did, yes. There were some, like we said, that's the breadth of this organization, stretched into New Jersey, other counties, and then obviously very close as well to the location of the coffee shop.
I noticed the seizures indicate a lot of $1 bills. Was that money seized from the cash register of this coffee place, or was that these people paying for drugs with $1 bills?
There's no cash register at the coffee shop.
Yeah, so there's no cash register at the coffee shop. So thank you for sharing that with us. I appreciate it.
How do people pay for the snacks?
You know what? I don't have that answer. I'm sorry. But anyways, it's clear that this place, through the investigation, was a front. Obviously, any cash that was seized was seized during the course of executing the search warrants in this case.
Did the people in the neighborhood, legitimate people, know to stay away from there, or did they go in there to get, to buy things, like snacks?
You go ahead.
Yeah. These agents actually spent a lot of time watching this neighborhood, and generally speaking, the people you would see going into the coffee shop were somehow related to the drug trafficking organization. We were out there the day the warrants were searched. There was no coffee pots at the coffee shop. There were some snacks and sodas and things of that nature, but I don't think it's impossible that a person might have gone in there, but based on the setup of that coffee shop, you would have gone to a different store. There wasn't really much there for you to do that. Now, what they did see on these days were a ton of people walking through that neighborhood. There was a bar across the street that was also searched as a result of this. There was a barber shop about a block away that was also part of this operation. What you'd see was neighbors walking past that to go elsewhere. These weren't really the places they would have gone, which I think is some indication that they knew what was up there.
The barber shop was involved in this too, you're saying?
There was a shop, I think it might be labeled a mini mart, but it had the setup for a barber shop at Garnett and Cumberland. Yes.
And you are?
I'm Mike Barry. I'm one of the prosecutors who handled the case. Thanks, sure.
You mentioned their ages. You mentioned they've been at this for a long time. Do you know about how long this operation was going on, or this organization was working?
I can also say there was a period of time where I supervised the neighborhood where this took place at a different office, the Philadelphia District Attorney's Office. People have been looking at this operation for over a decade. Our office, I know, has been concentrating on this for years. I could search through old documents I have talking about 18th and Cumberland, Cleveland and Cumberland, and this drug trafficking organization going back to 2012, 2011. They've been a blight on this neighborhood for well over a decade.
And you mentioned you called them a violent group. Have you been able to tie them to any violent crime at this point?
Well, with regard to violent crimes, I'm going to say that because this investigation is still ongoing, at this point we're not going to go into those specific details. What I will say, it's clear that when you have a drug dealing organization that's stockpiling arms, which we have here on the table, that those arms are used in furtherance of the drug trafficking organization. But with regard to specific acts of violence, that's for a future conversation. And I just want to say one other thing real quick, and that is going back to the point that was made by First Deputy Commissioner Stanford about when these calls come in. You know, these calls come in, and it's important for people to recognize that our goal is not just to go arrest the one person who they caught dealing that day. The goal is to do it right and to be able to remove an entire organization, because the impact on the community will be vastly greater, and that's what you're seeing happen here. And I just want to say one last time, you know, just my appreciation for the partnerships that you see here today. You know, no one can do any of this by themselves. It takes a team. We either win as a team or we don't. And I'm grateful for everything from our federal partners to the Pennsylvania State Police to the Philadelphia Sheriff's Office that is always there for us during these investigations when we need them. The Philadelphia PD has been outstanding, and I would be remiss if I didn't reemphasize that. So thank you.
What was the address again of the coffee shop number and what?
It was Cumberland and Cleveland? Cumberland and Cleveland. All right. Thank you, everyone, for covering this. I appreciate it. I hope everybody has a wonderful day. Thank you.
Thank you.